welcome to the Christina Nelson Show, where I talk to real people who motivate, inspire, and heal. And tonight is no different. I have with me a good friend of mine from many years ago. She is no guest or no stranger to the Christina Nelson Show. She has been on here before. Author, mom, entrepreneur, playwright, Andrea Joyce. She is going to be on here with her second, might be her third book. Second, she'll let us know when she gets on. A book, Seeing Through the Storms, a really very revealing, very vulnerable book about the storms she had been through in her life. And she is going to be our very special guest tonight. So everyone, please help me welcome Andrea Joyce.
Hello, Christina. How are you? I'm excited to be back. How have you been?
Yes, I've been great, and I'm excited to have you back with your, now correct me, second or third book. I'm not sure.
This is a third.
I thought so. As soon as I said two, I was like, no, I think this is actually number 3. So let's start off by saying hello to everyone out there. Hi, Sheila. Hello to my husband. Hello to Vanessa. Hello, everybody who's coming on and everybody who's going to listen to the replay. We thank you for being here and listening to us. And it's going to be an amazing show, an amazing time, just like it was the last time. It's this time we are talking about seeing through the storm. So let's refresh everyone's memory about who you are. Maybe mention the titles of the other 2 books, and then we can take off.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Andrea Joyce, originally from Paterson, New Jersey. Jersey girl. I live in Atlanta now, one of the suburbs of Atlanta, because we all claim Atlanta. But one of the official metro areas of Atlanta. You know, some people like to hang on, and no, I'm really a part of the Atlanta metropolitan area. I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters and 1 son. Mm-hmm. I love to cook. I love to bake. I love to read. I love to write. I like all different things. I love sports. Go Washington. You know.
Oh no! Don't let my husband hear you say that. He loves.
Yes, I'm so sorry that the Washington football team beat the New York Giants twice this year. I'm sorry.
You can rub that in. It's okay because my husband.
I had to say it.
My husband rubbed that in. I was like, I'm not even going to watch.
I had to say it only because I'm from Jersey. So almost everybody in my family is a Giants fan, and they called me like a traitor because I didn't like the Giants. I didn't like the team. So I was like, and so we became mortal enemies. And so now they talk smack about the team. I had to say neither one of us made it to the playoffs. However,
okay, I'll give that to you.
About me, let's see. I am an entrepreneur. Besides writing, I'm also a playwright. I write screenplays. I'm a director and producer. I'm a preacher. I'm a teacher. I teach also. I just, wear different hats.
Yeah.
But my true loves, honestly, are teaching the Word of God and writing, directing, and producing. Those they go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. I could never choose. It's like me, one half of me and then the other half of me. Mm-hmm. So last year, I was blessed and fortunate to write 3 books. The first was 31 Ways to Self-Care, which we talked about.
Yes.
The second book had to do with forgiveness, 5 steps to overcoming unforgiveness. And then the third book, Seeing Past the Storm.
Seeing Past the Storm. Oh, wow. Yeah. Let me tell you something, guys. I just feel almost nearly finished it. I only have a couple more pages to go, but it was really good. I mean, it put me in the story. I got to know you in a different way. If you guys don't know, I've known Andrea a long time. Very long. Many
decades.
Yes. So my daughter and her daughter were good friends. We, all hung out. We all went to the same church. And so what you think you know about a person, the outside, pardon me, everyone, the outside of what you see in a person, I've seen her. Went to church with her. We all hung out together. We knew each other. Our daughters danced together and all that kind of stuff. But the stuff that you don't see and people don't tell you about themselves. And when you open up in a book and become so vulnerable, you're like, I had no idea. Before we got on, I was saying, Andrew, I did not know you went through all of this. I didn't know before I met you, the stuff that you went through. And I guess that's what floored me, is the things that you went through before we even met each other. And I was like, wow, I would have never have known. What made you write this book to just expose all of those things?
I blame my first book, 31 Ways to Self-Care. Once I started writing that,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that there were things within me that I had never addressed, things that haunted me,
Mm-hmm.
things that were, as I'm trying to self-care, it was hard to fully get into self-care because I had things that were weighing on me. And one of the things with self-care is to look inside. That's point 2 in
Mm-hmm.
that book. And so I was like, well, I really am not looking inside because I'm not dealing with a lot of past things that are still bothering me.
Right.
And I was talking to my coach, who is Lady Ty the Great. Her name is Tanya Johnson. She is my coach, my writing coach, she's my everything coach. And she was talking about telling your truth, telling the things that may be embarrassing, you may have some shame about, you may have pushed down, but in order to honestly be free from them, you really need to start addressing them. Now, I had talked about some of these things before. You've heard some of the stories, but I gave it very surface, very
Mm-hmm.
basic information. So I wanted to be free of it. And I wanted, if anyone was to read this book, I wanted them to be released from it. The other part of it is when I first wrote this book, the first book I wrote wasn't quite like this
Right.
because, again, it was surface. It was very minimal
Right.
because I didn't really want people to know my life or some of the things, because there's still more, but these are the focuses. My editor, Utopia Johnson, Utopia Nicole, I'm going to call her that, Utopia
Mm-hmm.
Nicole. She's my editor. She took the book, she looked at it and, did all her edits. And she was like, no, this is not the story. Give me more. She's
Oh,
like,
wow.
make me cry. And I was like, I don't want to make you cry, because in order for me to make you cry, I've got to cry. And I'm
Yeah.
not ready for that, because truly, in being healed, tears are a release. We
Mm-hmm.
think of them as a weakness, but they're actually a strength. And I didn't really want you to be in my life that much, because I'm kind of private. I keep things, like you said, you knew me over a decade and you
Right.
didn't know.
Right.
And I just didn't want to be judged. I didn't want people to look at me and say, oh my gosh. But at the same token, I did want people to see me. They see this strong person, but there's a reason I'm a strong person. This
Right.
didn't come by
Right.
happenstance.
Mm-hmm. Strength does come in many different forms, like somebody who is a body lifter, but you have to work at it. Like strength is something that you have to constantly work at having, and you became strong because things were constantly being thrown on you, that heavy stuff that you had to lift. And if you read this book, you guys will find out exactly a lot of those things. And she said that wasn't even everything. That's not even everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there are a lot of other things. I'm sure there are things that I could write a book and people will probably be like, I had no idea, girl. I would have been, I would be like, yeah, that happened. That was me. Yeah, that was me. I was that type of person. I was that person, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of this had to do with, in the beginning, you start off with your father's and you relationship and your biological father and how that went down, and the starting of rejection and being left, and rejection, and I think that's the word I'm looking for. I think it's rejection.
Abandonment.
Abandonment, thank you. Yeah. And that was kind of like the start of everything that was going down in your life, and the breakdown of how you became the person that you became after a while. So tell us about the relationship with your father and what that did to you growing up.
Boy, you never realize the power your parents have over you. We
Mm-hmm.
like to think that we are strong without them, that they don't have any influence, even if they're in our lives or out of our lives, but they
Mm-hmm.
have the most influence on how we're going to be. My father, my biological father, and my mother, they were together, married, I guess happily married. I don't remember too much of the bad times because when the bad times came, I was about 3 or 4. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't have too many memories, but the one that I talk about in the book that stuck out was my McDonald's cup, my mug. It was my favoriteest mug. Growing up, we didn't get to go to McDonald's all the time. That was a treat. That was special. That wasn't an everyday, I don't feel like cooking. It wasn't an every week, maybe
Mm-hmm.
once a month you got to go to a McDonald's. So when
Right.
we went, they were selling the white mugs with the smiley face. Remember?
Yes.
I wanted that mug so bad and I got it. And it
Mm-hmm.
was my favorite. And I drank hot chocolate, it was my favoriteest thing. And one day I was sitting on my dad's lap, which is what I always used to do, and they had an argument. And the argument, first of all, I didn't know what to do because it was yelling happening. You hear yelling is you because you didn't clean up your room or something. But the yelling was getting louder and louder and more intense. But the only thing I could focus on was that McDonald's mug that I loved flying off the table and hitting the floor
Mm-hmm.
and going into pieces. Why that mug stands out so much to me because it became me. That was my life. My life flew away from me and shattered because shortly after that, my parents divorced.
Okay.
So it wasn't even an amicable divorce.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't friends at first because he was angry and hurt, and my mom was angry and hurt. And so um, I remember he would come by sometimes. I didn't understand why he wasn't there all the time anymore. I didn't understand what a divorce was. I was too young. But I noticed as time progressed, the calls stopped, the visits stopped. And I was like, what did I do? Did I
Mm-hmm.
not make up my bed? Did I not get a good grade on my report? Things. And you internalize it. And when you're young, you don't know how to go to somebody and say, where's my dad? I'm hurting. I miss him.
Yeah.
Tell him to call me. Why can't, you don't do those things. You just kind of, life takes you. That's why I said the mug that went flying, that was my life. My life just was out of my control. And it was at the control of others. And, my mom remarried, and that's my dad. Now that's why I'm glad you said biological father,
Mm-hmm.
because people who know me hear me say dad and they automatically assume I'm only talking about one person. Well, I
Okay.
am, but it's my dad that raised me, not my dad that birthed me. There's a difference. My biological father, I rarely talked about him growing up because the yo-yo relationship we had. He would come in sometimes, he would leave sometimes. I wouldn't
Mhm.
hear from him for years. Then all of a sudden he's popping up. And he was the person who taught me to not be impressed with money. The
Okay.
reason is because anytime he lied or he stood me up or he didn't show up, there was this big gift. There would be either hundreds of dollars or it'd be a new fur coat or the new shearling that was out or a
Mhm.
Kango or whatever sneakers I wanted. So materialism, that's who I became. I
Okay.
became a materialistic female, but I wasn't impressed if you wanted to buy me something. I could get that.
Oh my gosh.
Impressive to me. I
Right.
already look at my closet. Look at all the leaves that match my Adidas with the shoelaces. I was that chick. And
Mhm.
so a lot of who I wasn't who I was.
Oh wow, that's good.
It was a
I like that.
protector.
I like that you just said that a lot of who I wasn't who I was.
Mm-mm. I did not really get to know myself until I started writing this book
Hmm.
because there were so many pieces, like the mug. That's why
Yeah.
broken pieces. And I started picking up those pieces to try to figure out who the heck am I?
Oh my
Because I
goodness.
don't know. I'm who other people say I am. I'm who
Mhm.
other people want me to be. I'm people pleasing. Remember, we talked about that.
Yeah.
That was a lot of the years of my life being a people pleaser. And once I was like, stop, I was like, huh,
Hmm.
who am I? I don't know this person. And so
That's good. I think that majority of my life I did that too, because you want to be who people think that you are, or you want them to think that you are that particular person. Now, am I a nice person? Am I funny? Or am I all these things? Yeah, I am that. But there was also like the person that they didn't get to really see underneath all of what I showed them. I showed them what I wanted to show them, or I showed them who I thought that they wanted to see, but I was not that person, like I
absolutely.
just said, you know? And so now, because I really honestly, whenever you said dad, I thought you meant your dad. So even this book let me know, like, I was like, wait, wasn't her dad? Who are you? I wasn't your dad because dad, like, I didn't know that you had, it
Two
was
fathers.
biological and there was a stepfather. I
Mhm.
didn't know that. Wow, until this
And you
book.
met my dad that raised me. You didn't meet my biological father.
No,
No one did really.
no, but I didn't know that he was
But no
not.
one knew
Yeah.
because he had me under his wing. He wanted to adopt me. And that's something
Mm-hmm.
else I talk about in the book. I kind of fly over it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to change my last name. Well, my dad was going to adopt me and
Wow.
make me his child because he really is my dad.
Yeah.
And so when my biological father heard that, because you can't just do it, they have to give up their rights. And he
Yeah.
was so out of my life, I just knew he would go for it. But that was the biggest argument my mother, and my dad. I had never heard my dad that raised me. He really never got involved.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of stayed back to with the father thing. He
Yeah.
just was my dad. He didn't involve him. He was respectful to my biological father, but there
Right.
was no need for a whole lot of chit chat. That my mom, he had her back, but he allowed her to handle the things she wanted to handle the way she wanted to handle them. But
Okay.
this time, this conversation was a very heated discussion, and I really my dad is from St. Thomas, and I will always say when he gets angry, that dialect comes out, and I
Um,
osmosis have it. So when I get angry, they're like, "Girl, we can't understand what you're saying." I'm like, but his dialect came out so strong. I knew he was angry, and he had to leave.
oh.
And I was heartbroken though, because I just wanted to belong. I didn't want to have a different last name. Everybody in my household had one last name. I was the odd man out. I didn't have that same last name. Not
Yeah.
to mention, my last name was picked on because it's Carr. So, all the kids, I gave them something else to talk about. And so it was like, yeah, I really want to get rid of that last name. And I like your last name. And then I'll belong, and then I'll be your daughter for real. And
Mm-hmm.
so when that happened, the dad that raised me, Daniel, he made it even more of a mission for me to feel accepted by him. And
Oh.
I knew that then, but I didn't accept it at the point. I still felt like the odd man out.
Oh. Wow. Wow. Isn't that crazy? Just a last name, like something as, I don't want to say little, but it's something just as small as having his last name that just made you like, what if you would have felt like you belonged, rather than like the man on the outside, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And that's amazing. I can totally understand that. I remember, and this is sort of on the subject, but dealing with my children, I have 3 kids. They do not have the same father. And so I made them all have my last name in the middle so that everyone would know that they were related, because I didn't want them to all to feel like they were the last, odd. And the funny thing is, even though they all had the different fathers and they had a different last name at the end, the hyphenated name, so it was Clemence, Clemence, whatever. None of them use their other name. They all use my name. And I see why, like through that story that you're telling me, I see why is that they were probably like, I don't want to have a different last name. I don't want to have a different last name. I want to have the same last name as my mom and my other siblings, so no one will question it. Why do you
Right.
have my last name?
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Wow. So tell us more about this book and about these relationships. You had some tumultuous relationships. we all go through and growing up or getting our, when we're young, we're kids or young adults, and we all have these relationships. And, we can look back at them today and be like, what was I thinking? Why did I even press the issue with this person, this guy, this man? Why did I even go there? Do you think it had anything to do with the way you grew up, or did you look for your dad in that individual or those individuals?
Absolutely, but the opposite. I didn't want my father.
Okay.
But it's the law of attraction. The thing that you really don't want seems to attract itself to you. And so I didn't want him because he
Mm-hmm.
was a yo-yo. I didn't want a yo-yo in my life. My biological father, and love you, but got to tell the truth. Don't come haunt me in my dreams. He did not know how to settle down. He was not someone who could be in a monogamous relationship. I'll say it like that.
Okay.
So my mission from the age of 5 has always been to be in a monogamous relationship, to be married, to live the fantasy life where no one argues, no one cheats, no one throws anything. They're always there. They're going to love you. The happily ever after, the fairy tale. That's since the age of 5. I had my wedding plan because I was so serious about not wanting his life at all. I was like, I don't want to be like him. I don't want to be in all these different relationships. And it was funny because I would be in a monogamous relationship, but unfortunately, some of the people I was in a relationship with didn't understand how to be in a monogamous relationship.
Yeah.
And I was like, so it basically was the sins of the father falling down on me, because now I have these men who are walking in his footstep, and I'm looking at them like, did I not tell you in the beginning? In the beginning was the word, and the word from Andrea was
Yeah. Yep.
faithfulness, fidelity. All of these things matter because at that point in time, Christina, I like to be professional. We'll talk.
Okay. It's okay.
In that point of time, I didn't know how to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
So you were one and done. If you did something to hurt me, there was no forgiving. I didn't know what forgiveness was. All I saw as a child was my parents arguing and my father being ejected from the house. That's what I saw. I didn't know what happened behind scenes. I didn't know it was years in the making. All I saw, remember, the mug went flying. My biological father was escorted out. Bye bye, sir.
Wow.
So all I knew was if somebody makes a mistake, that's it. You just move on to the next. Sorry, you didn't work out. So I had a hard heart. Even though I was smiling and laughing and made myself the class clown and a jokester, I really was very vindictive. I really was very vengeful. I was really that person. I was cold. And so it amazed me sometimes that I still have friends, because I would be like, oh, you messed up. Peace out. I'm out. And they still calling. I'm like, what are you calling for? I don't have any use for you. See,
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't understand it because the first relationship I ever had was a wrong relationship, and that was with my father. That relationship shaped every relationship, not just dating,
Yeah.
friends, people. I didn't trust anybody.
Wow.
I'm from Jersey. We already don't trust people. But now I really don't trust people because you're going to hurt me. So my mission was to hurt you before you could hurt me.
Okay.
And I lived life like that. And that was very dangerous because there were times I wanted to be vulnerable, but I didn't know how.
Mm.
I was like this. My heart was guarded. I didn't have to know God then to talk about protecting my heart. I was armor. I weighed, no, you can't have my heart. And so my very first adult relationship that I fell head over heels in love with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And read about it. I talk about it in here. Was my biggest heartbreak that I never recovered from until I started writing the book.
Wow.
We even had a conversation, and it
Okay.
was crazy. So in this relationship, I could have probably drank his bathwater. I was over the moon. I had never been
This is
so
the
in love.
fine green-eyed brother.
Yes, the golden brown-eyed, yes, hazel eyes, yes, girl. I was knocked over. I was like, wow, who is that? And I was working in a sporting goods store
Mhm.
in Paramus. And Paramus has all the people that come in. So you'll meet the famous, not so famous, the rich, not so rich. Everybody came into this sporting goods store. And so I'm working. My friends and I, we're plotting and planning what we're going to do for the weekend. I'm just working and ready for the sale to be over so I can clock out and get into some mischief. And this gorgeousness walks in. And I'm just like, it's like he was a mix between LL and Will Smith when Will Smith was the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The
Okay.
two came together, and I was just like, good googly moogly. And I had never been struck by lightning, but I was struck by lightning that day. And I just knew my mission was he's got to be mine. And everybody was plotting on him. Every girls that had boyfriends. I'm sitting here looking at them like, lady, you have somebody. If you don't go sit down somewhere. But I had it in mind. I was like, he has to. It just has to work.
Yeah.
And then he looked at me and it was, I don't know what you call it, kismet. I don't know what it was, but it was just like, I knew.
Okay.
And so he impressed me. First of all, he talked to me. Hey, let's talk about that. I beat all of them. No. But he impressed me. He invited me out that night on a date. Now, usually, you get to know somebody, you spend time on the phone. I just was like, okay. And he was like, and I'll come pick you up. Okay. We don't do any of that stuff.
No.
Who is this girl? So he picked me up from work. And what impressed me was after eating, he took me to the basketball court and we were talking. All we did was talk. We were hours talking. And I was like, oh my gosh, you could talk about anything.
Okay.
That's so sexy to me. I love an intelligent man. I'm like, wow. And so, but while we were there, what really impressed me was this young boy came up who should have been home and he had a basketball and he was like dribbling and looking lonely and lost and he could not make a basket. And so my guy goes into the trunk of his car and pulls out his basketball sneakers because of course he's 6'3", 6'4", so he plays basketball and he gives the boy a lesson on how to play basketball. And I'm sitting here and
you're just like, oh, he's going to
will you marry me? Like this is it.
Yeah.
Mind blown. Like who does that? He was like, excuse me. He said he just looks really lonely. The fact that you picked that up, yeah. So we dated for a long time. We got engaged. He cheated on me. And I did not know how to forgive infidelity. He tried everything. He repented. He bought flowers. He bought clothes. He bought jewelry. Everything. He kept coming. And I was just like, absolutely not. I don't even know who you are.
Oh my God.
Instead of giving myself the opportunity to heal, I needed to heal. I really loved him. I can honestly say I know there's going to be people who hear this, not going to like this, but I have to be honest. He probably was the love of my life then. Like I never experienced anything like that ever again. And so, and you know how we talk about puppy love and our first love, but no, this was different. I was like, this is adult stuff, even though I was only 19, but it felt like an adult situation. And so I didn't know how to forgive him. Instead of giving myself a chance to heal and get over I listened to that old adage, the best way to get over one person is to get underneath somebody else. I don't know why they even said that.
Yep.
I know. Stop saying that is not the best thing to do. But I listened and I got myself into a rebound relationship, wound up getting pregnant with my oldest daughter. And because my mother is from South Carolina and my father is from the West Indies, I had to get married.
Put a ring on
I did not love at all. I didn't even like him. I don't even think he liked me, but it wasn't I was like, bruh, I'm feeling somebody else, but my parents.
Really feeling somebody else.
Yes. And so I got married, and Chrissy, it's a very funny story because we were married this day, and the next day he was off in the air because
Oh
he
wow.
was doing a tour of duty. So we never even were married. On paper, yes, but the physical, I could have gotten an annulment. We were not married. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so when he left, I found out while he was doing his tour of duty, he was also touring other people.
Oh
And so I
gosh.
was like, oh, good. Now I can get out of this sham of a wedding, marriage. And my mother was like, oh, no, no, no. You're a wife. You will. I was like, oh, no, I'm not. I'm still Andrea, no wife. I'm a single mother. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so my ex came back into the picture, and he had, I'll never forget, it was this huge bouquet of tulips. He is the only man to this day who knows my favorite flower, who
Mm-hmm.
actually listens. He bought me, it was like 3 or 4. It was huge. It was like a spray, I guess is what they call it. It was this big. Like I had to hold it like this, but it was like this. And so he came with the flowers and his white teddy bear, huge teddy bear. And, no forgiveness. And my mother at first wasn't going to let him in the house because, of course, that's not my husband. And she's all on his husband and blah, blah, blah. You know what you're supposed to do when you're really in
Right.
a relationship, in a marriage. And she was like, oh, fine, because he's not leaving. He's just going to stand here. So he came in, and my mother said these words to me that I will never forget. She said, you have to tell him that you're married. And I was like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't. We could just forget that, pretend it didn't happen. But no. So he came in, got on his knee. He said, can I be a dad to your child? And can I be your husband? And I broke into, I can still cry because it was the worst thing besides having to tell my parents I did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It was the worst experience I ever had was having to tell him, I can't, I'm already married. And he, whoo, I don't even know if I can tell the story now. Whew, he just burst into tears, and that cry was
Mm-hmm.
so. I just held him, and he didn't say a word. He just got up after he calmed himself down and left, and that was that.
Wow. That's a lot. Wow. Choices. Wow. Right. All because of some choices that we make, and I guess that's exactly what your book is dealing with, is the choices that we've made and the wrongs, because not only him, but you had friends, female friends who did you wrong, and people that did you just really dirty and everything. But like you said, you still had this vindictive, you didn't want to forgive anyone. And so how did we come around? So how did we get to it? Finally, you've been through homelessness. There's a part in your book where you shared how you slept in your van with your kids. You would go to and wash up, and you know uh, in a
And
diner,
for Burger King. Mm-hmm.
Burger King, and and all because your pride stopped you from saying to your mother, look, I need help, I need a place to live, or I need a place to stay, or to anyone, I need some help. Let's talk about pride for a moment here. What in the world, where did pride get you? What was it that made you so prideful that you just could not bear to ask anyone for help so that you could, get off the streets or get out the van or whatever?
Oh, pride is horrible. But when I tell you, pride came because of people. Um, there were times the buildup, it was
Mm-hmm.
happening, and I would reach out to someone and they would be too busy or unavailable or couldn't help, and my feelings got hurt.
Okay.
Remember, I couldn't be vulnerable. I was
Mm-hmm.
hard hearted. So it was like you were taking a brick and hitting it up against this rock. The brick or rock, one of them is going to break, but they're still both going to be hard. You know what I mean? And so the rejection, that's it. It really, my pride is based off rejection. I have had dealt with so much rejection. So when I asked somebody something, my biggest fear was they were going to say no.
No.
And that rejection is what built my pride. And so when I got into a situation where I couldn't help myself, I rehearsed recordings in my head of conversations I had had months before or weeks before with certain people that I was testing the waters. Let's put it like that. Before the homelessness became homelessness, I tested the waters to see, and the answer was, well, I couldn't help in that situation. If you needed money for something, I don't have the money, or I don't have the space, or so it wasn't just I just decided not to ever say anything. I had gone to a few people to try to get help,
Okay.
and it was a rejection. Then I went to the government to get help, and it was a rejection.
Oh, wow.
So rejection after rejection after rejection built my pride. And I was like, I would rather suffer than deal with this rejection. I didn't know that rejection came all the way or went all the way back to my biological father. That's why it hurts so badly. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when you don't deal with things, you don't know the triggers,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know why. You
Yeah.
just know it is. And I knew it was. And I was very prideful from a very young age. It
Yeah.
didn't just happen overnight. I was always prideful. I didn't know it stemmed from the rejection, because I could talk to a million people. And as long as they didn't have any power to say no over me, I was fine. But if you had the power in your hand where you could tell me no and hurt my feelings, I feared you.
Mm.
I couldn't let you in. It hurt too badly. And I didn't recognize that until I started writing. Where did this all stem from? Why didn't I do the conversations? Why didn't I ask? Why didn't I let people know? It was the rejection. And then it was the embarrassment, because what happened was the decision I made to marry someone, because I repeated a cycle. I repeated the be hurt, get with somebody else. Be
Yeah.
hurt, get with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh, I'm hurt, and now I'm pregnant again. Oh,
Oh,
brother.
wow.
And I still have the same parents. They
Mm-hmm.
were like, okay, we don't care what you're going to get married. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was the cycle again. And because I was with someone who he and I were like oil and water. No, yes, oil and water that don't mix.
Mm-hmm.
We did not mix at all. And it was like embarrassment and shame,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm with somebody that's not on my level. And what I mean by that is not that I was better than, but we just were two different people. We had nothing in common. And
Right.
so it's something that should have never, ever happened, but it happened. And because of pregnancy, it went further than it would have ever went. Because as a matter of fact, the day I was going to break up with him is the day I found out I was pregnant. And I was like, wow,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
wow. And so the shame of being in the relationship with this person, and the pride and the rejection, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was not a good mix at all.
Oh
Not
my.
at all.
Wow. I wanted to read something from your one right here, and it was about pride. That's why I touched on it. You said, my mother would tell me not to do something that was meant to hurt someone else that would ultimately hurt me too. I did not listen. Sometimes just letting go of my pride would have eased bad things from happening, but I held on to it with a steel grip. As I held on to that pride, I watched blessings slip away. While pride comforted me, solutions to my problems faded away. The more I failed, and the more I lost out, the tighter I held on to my pride. I was already angry about other things. Now I turned that anger towards people that should have known I needed help but did not offer it. No, I did not ask. I just assumed that they should know. I can so relate to that last line like that. I could, and I'm not even knowing that it was pride. I didn't think that what I was doing was prideful either, but it was pride. I I needed help but didn't want it because I figured, well, why don't they see? You see me with these three kids. You see me
Oh
struggling.
man, yes.
I'm single. You see, I got was diagnosed with MS. You see all this kind of stuff, and how you should just know I need help, but you're not asking. But I never asked either, and that was definitely a form of pride. Oh, So that was like,
Yeah. It tripped us up because while you were saying that, I was like, I keep forgetting how similar our story is.
mm-hmm.
The three kids, we both have two girls and a boy, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
because you were a godsend because I was able to take some of the focus of the problems off because Isis had her best friend. It was Faith, and Faith was like my daughter. Faith would come to the house before we
Yeah.
became homeless and distract. And
Mm-hmm.
then you and I would go out for brunch and
Right.
distract. And I
Yeah.
needed that though, because the breakdown would have happened a lot sooner
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't have you, if I didn't have Shanice, if I didn't have Lisa, if I didn't have Chandra. There were certain people who were in my life that they don't even know it
Yeah.
were blessings. Because even when I was homeless, the part that you read about, I would give people rides from the church
Yeah.
that didn't have cars. And they would give me gas money, not knowing that $5 or that $10 was what was helping me feed my kids and
Mm-hmm.
wash their clothes, because they only had two changes of clothes, the school uniform and the
Mm-hmm.
gym t-shirts that I bought from Clifton, that store in
Yeah.
Clifton.
Yeah.
And so that's all they had. So I wasn't making any money because I didn't have a permanent place to live. And one of the things that the government used to do back when, if you didn't have a permanent residence address that they can mail you stuff to, they wouldn't help you. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a catch-22. It was like, if I had a place, I wouldn't need your help.
Right.
And so it was.
I know. Trust me. I know. I've been there. I have been there. I remember. Yeah. And it was also a distraction for me too. If you didn't know, just bringing my daughter up and having her being able to have a friend to go to, and the stuff that I had been dealing with relationships that I have been in and all that kind of stuff. So we deflected off of one another, and it was like, oh, okay, like,
We
let's.
needed each other. At least we weren't and we weren't prideful with each
No,
other. That's the crazy thing,
no.
because we talked about a lot of stuff a
Yeah.
lot of people didn't know.
Mm-mm.
You and I had conversations, and I don't know. It's always been that way since day one.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I can't call you Christina, because you've always been my Chrissy. Always, always, always. I'm like, my Chrissy. When I found you on Facebook, I was all excited, like, it's Chrissy.
Hey. My
Like,
husband.
okay, her name is Christina.
No,
However,
it's
she will
okay.
always and forever be my Chrissy. We have cried together and
Yeah.
laughed together, and I needed that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying not to get emotional. See, I don't want to be on your show. You
I
always
know,
make me
right? I was like,
emotional.
let's not go here because I'm feeling welling up. It's like welling up right now.
But you have been such a huge blessing. And the thing is, and I need all the listeners to hear this, I didn't know Chrissy had MS. Never knew. Never showed. That never showed.
Yeah.
So when you first told me, I was like, what do you mean? Did you just discover this yesterday? And you were like, no, I've had it.
I had it for years at that time. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You're so strong. And now that you read the book, you're like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
We had these things that, but we talked about so many other things,
Yeah.
though. And so I'm just grateful because during this season, I didn't know who I could trust. So remember the betrayals that happened as a teenager and a young adult, those were all thick in my mind, in my memory. So I wasn't sure who I could trust my heart with. But some of the opening of my heart that I had was towards you. And that's why we've never, ever been out of contact.
Right.
As soon as I can find you, I'm like, Chrissy, and I'm texting you or, messaging, like, you okay? Everything okay? Because I remember how low I was.
Wow.
And I couldn't talk to my mother. We didn't have a good relationship at that time. My sister was in Georgia. She had her own life going on. So I really didn't talk to her. I have friends, but again, betrayals. So I'm just like, I don't know who. So if I'm going to open up a little bit, God sent me you. And I'm so grateful. Yeah. I'm going to stop right there.
Oh wow. Let's get to the forgiveness part though. Have you gotten to the point where now you can forgive and forgive your dad. How did you forgive your dad? How did you forgive those people? You said you had conversations with some people, and that takes up a lot of guts. I'm telling you, because to me, for me to go back and entertain that, like maybe go back and to someone who I know hurt me or wronged me and to talk to them, like, wow, that's big. Can I do it? I probably could at this point, but that's a lot. So how did that happen for you? How did that turnaround come about?
It all started with the person who hurt me first. He
Mm-hmm.
had to be the one that got forgiven first,
Mm-hmm.
because without that, I couldn't do anybody else. It
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have been genuine, because I still had I had hatred. See,
Mm-hmm.
we don't like to talk about that because like, oh, hate is against God. But can we be honest about it? I hated my father. I hated my mother because of the situation. There's no stronger emotion than hate except for love. You can't have one and the other. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know how we say, oh, I hate them and I love them. That's not
Mm-hmm.
true.
Cannot.
If you have feelings of hate for someone, there is no love there. The two don't go together.
Nope.
They don't fit. It's like darkness and light. You can't
Mm-hmm.
have both at the same time.
Mm-mm.
So when, boy, it was a lot of years. I
Uh-huh.
was in my 30s before I was able to forgive my biological father. My mother would constantly tell me, please forgive your father. Please forgive him. If something should happen to him, you'll
Mm.
never forgive yourself. You won't be able to live with yourself. I've seen it happen. Please. And I tried. But Chrissy, times I would call him, and I think I wrote about one of the incidents in the
Yeah.
book where I was like, I just want to talk to you. He said, I don't want to talk about that, and hung up on me. And I got angrier. I was like, I'm
Right. Head
already
head
upset.
into the anger. Okay.
And
Yep.
then here you go, and it's rejection again. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just sitting here like I was about to implode. So I actually cut off our relationship. I think that point I was 16. I did not talk to him again until right before I had ISIS. And so she was born, let me see, I was 22. So from 16 to 22, we didn't have any conversations. He would
Mm.
call, I don't even know who that dude is, hang up. I would not. And my
Right.
mother, she's steady, forgive, forgive. And I'm looking at her like she got one more forgive. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to tell you to go to your room and leave me alone. So I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to hear anything more about forgiveness. And then I asked her this question. I said, why do I, the child, have to run behind a grown man? He's the father. He's
Mm-hmm.
the parent. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
child. Shouldn't he do this for me? And my mother said something I'll never forget. I have to remind her of this because this is where it started. She said, there are some adults who are adult in age, but not adult in stage. It's
Wow.
something that I use a lot. My mom
Mm-hmm.
said that to me. And I was like, what? And she was like, they have the age 50, 60, 70, 80, but their mindset still has them at 10, 11. And I was like, ooh, adults aren't grown? They're not mature? What do you mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I kept thinking about that. And I thought about the activities of my biological father. Some of the things I think I wrote about some of the mind games he played. Don't call him dad. He's not your father. And if he wasn't married to your mother, I could come back. These were games he played with me growing up. So that we'll talk about that another time. That
Mm-hmm.
caused friction between the dad that raised me and me. This
Yeah.
man had done everything for me, but now I'm hating him and
Mm-hmm.
being mean to him because this man who's a yo-yo sits there and says, don't do it. I could
Mm-hmm.
come back if he wasn't there. We should get rid of him. I mean, who tells a child that? I was like 7,
Wow.
but I digress. So I started thinking about these things as my mom was talking about age and stage of being an adult. And I was like, I said to her one day, we were in a car, and I remember I was crying, and she was like, what's wrong? I said, how do I forgive? I can't. I don't think I'm fixed to forgive. I don't think I have the thing that you have, whatever, because I can't do it. Every time I try to be like, okay, I'm gonna forget it, it comes back. And my mom was like, that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness has nothing to do with you not remembering.
Mm-hmm.
What it is that when you remember things, the pain is no longer there. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, uh. And she reminded me, she gave me a relatable, practical example. She said, remember when you were pregnant with Isis, my oldest? And I was like, yes. She said, remember you gave birth? I was like, yes. She said, and remember it was painful, right? And I was like, yeah. She said, do you remember the pain? I was like, no, I don't. I just know there was pain there, but I don't feel it. I don't know. At this point, I don't even know if there was pain because I don't remember that part of it. I remember the joy of having my baby in my hands, in my arms. And she said, that's like forgiveness. And I was like, this is why she's mom, you know, I'm just a child, you understand? Because that wisdom. And she said, when you truly forgive someone, it doesn't mean you forget what they've done to you, nor does it mean that they were right. It means that you have grace enough in your heart to say, even though you did this to me, I'm going to love you in spite of it. And I was just like, whew,
Oh.
okay, I'm not that mature. So it's years, but I have to credit this group at my church here in Georgia. It was called Making Peace with Your Past. And I actually did a group this past year on it because it's so important.
Mhm.
In that group, we talked about the different things that are stumbling blocks.
Okay.
And figure out what is the thing. What is, because we all have different areas. Remember, I wrote about 9 storms, and I probably have about 15. But even those 9 storms, there's still a source of where the storm started. Because even think about a physical storm. When a storm blows, it doesn't all happen all at one time. It boils up into a storm. So what is that piece? What is that seed? What is that root that caused all of it? It was my father.
Yeah.
And so what we did was we talked about it in group and everything, and the book is so helpful. But then our assignment was to write a letter. And in the letter, we were to say every single thing that they did that hurt us, embarrassed us, whatever it was, as if they were standing there and they couldn't speak.
Okay.
And so you wrote it and you said any way you wanted to say it. However it came out, it came out. And you just wrote it. My letter was 10 pages long, back and front.
Oh my
Legal,
God.
because it was so much. Now, before this process started, I have to say this part. I prayed. I had been praying to God for years to help me forgive. My mother also said to me, when you are really ready to forgive, God will be there to help you forgive. When you are ready to let it go, God
Yes.
will be able to help you. So let me put that in there. I don't want people to think God was the reason I'm able to forgive it is God because of that prayer. So I kept praying. But right before this group, I prayed, I cried to God, and I was like, I want this hatred gone. It's killing me. It is the relationships I'm in, the relationships I've gotten into, all the heartache is because of this one thing, this one person. I need you to help me to get rid of it. I don't want it anymore. I don't want it. And remember, my mother said, when you're ready,
When you're ready.
I
Yeah.
will. So this group came. And so when I wrote that 10-page letter, oh, I was boo-hoo crying. And oh my gosh, it was a lot of emotion. And I had dealt with emotion, remember? And so now we go to the group and they tell us to bring our letters with us. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're gonna do what we're gonna do with this. They said, okay, now you have to read it.
Oh gosh.
¿Por qué? I don't understand. What? ¿Qué pasa? Okay. What do you mean? Read it to who? To myself? And they were like, you stand in the middle of the room, and there were about 12 of us. You stand in the middle of the room, and they put a chair there. The chair represents the person. And
Okay.
you read the letter to the person. And I was like, if I had known this, this would not be this letter. They caught me completely by surprise. Writing the letter, I thought, was the breakthrough. Reading out loud was the breakthrough because little Andrea got to say things, teenager Andrea got to say things, adult Andrea got to say things. And I really felt like that. Like I felt when I was reading it as if I was reading for Andrea, little Andrea, who was lost in this whole situation that was controlling her whole life. And when I read it, Chrissy, I could still, I promise you, these emotions, man, I could feel it. And as I was reading it, I felt like layers were falling off. And I was just crying and crying. The whole room was crying. And it was crazy because some of the participants in the group had the same story.
Oh man.
And I was like, oh my gosh, we're all right. I thought I was all alone in this. And
No.
I'm crying, they're crying, we bringing stuff out. And then we burned the letters. Well, we ripped the letters up there, but then we burned them outside.
Mm-hmm.
Never to talk about it again. You gave it to God, let God heal. It had to be about, it was a few weeks later. I'm not sure. I was at work, minding my business, and this weight came off of me. I
Mm-hmm.
felt it leave me, and I was standing there, and I was like, I forgave my father.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It just, and then I started crying. And I just knew. I can't tell you how I knew, but I knew that he was forgiven. And to test me, God allowed him to have a heart attack. I want to say it was 3 weeks later.
Mm.
And if I had not forgiven him, I would have never been called about it because he didn't have my number or anything. But
Yeah.
after I forget the forgiveness, I felt it. I called him and gave him my information, and we talked. And then he talked to the kids who hadn't talked to him because
Mm.
he had no relationship again.
Yeah.
And so when he had the heart attack, the nursing home, well, he wasn't a nursing home then. The hospital called me to let me know what happened. And I was able, I knew, because I was like, do you want me to come up there? Do you want to come down here? Do you want to move here? And I was like,
What
whoa.
did I say?
I was like, oh, I really did forgive. And it's crazy how when you give something to God and he heals you from it, he
Mm-hmm.
tests you in that area to see
Wow.
if it's real. But it's
Mm.
not for him because he knows, but he wants you to know
Mm-hmm.
and understand, oh, I'm healed from this.
Wow.
So that was
Big.
the big forgiveness. And
Yeah.
everything after that was not as big.
I hear you. Wow, Andrea, that's amazing. Like forgiveness is really powerful, and I've often heard it say it's not for them; it's really for you. Because if that at that point of you being able to forgive, it freed you from all the other stuff and all the pride and all the bitterness and all the anger and all the hurt, and you were able to just like now move on and write about it and tell others about it so they can be free. That's
Yeah,
amazing. That is
that's
amazing.
forgiveness.
I
Yes.
want to show people the book again, and I where did I go? Where to go? I know you have one, but I wanted to show them up front and personal here. There you go. Order your copy today. I know some people were asking where, if it was on Amazon or not. Is it on Amazon as well?
It is. It is on Amazon. Seeing Past the Storm by Andrea Joyce. It's on
Yep.
Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Or again, Barnes and Noble. And so it's also AndreaJoyce.net is her website. Go to her website. She has, a lot of things in there. You can look at all her books are on there. If you really just want to look at all her books, then you can go into her website and see all her books. And I think, does this one have a journal? This one has a
That's
journal?
what I'm working on. It's coming out this year.
Okay.
Actually being edited right now. It'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's great. And so that's going to be awesome. Wow. You're like really up and coming. You got all these books under your belt now.
This one needed a journal because I tell my story in this, but there are people who have stories
Yeah.
that they need to talk about. There's some things that they're dealing with that the stories in this book are going to bring out. And so God put it on my heart because I wasn't going to do a journal. God told me, you will do a journal so they can write because they need to get it out. And I was like, okay. So it took long because God was giving me scripture and he was giving me the questions. And I was just like, you want me to ask that? Okay, this is really serious. I'm like, if I had to take this journal, if I didn't write this book, I would be mad at me.
Yeah.
And also, I've had a couple of people ask me, am I going to turn it into a class? And I am. It'll probably be next year.
Seeing Past the Storm class. Like, so it'll be like a series of whatever, like the program that you were in.
Mm-hmm. It'll be the aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
Triumph after the storm.
Yeah, triumph. I like it. Triumph after the storm. That's good right there. Oh wow. Yes. She said someone said, hello, Queen, need this book. I know, right, Yvonne? Yeah, we have to go to AndreaJoyce.net. I know it sounds like a couple of people want to forgive. I'm looking at the words and trying to talk. I wanted to buy this, and this was in reference to our friendship. Godly friendship means a lot. Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Here and Miss Vanasta, where is it?
Please
Come on.
let God choose your friends.
Yes, yes. You're such an open and honest woman. And I think that's what people liked, is that you were open and honest, and everyone wants somebody who's going to be open and honest and help them out, because it helps for you too. So thank you so much. This was good to have you on here and be open and honest and vulnerable, and get her book. I encourage you to get her book, AndreaJoyce.net, or on Amazon. Seeing Past, I should have wrote it in there, but Seeing Past the Storm, Seeing Past the Storm. So you want to go see. Remember, it's the cover is unique. I like the cover.
My cousin actually drew the cover for me.
Mm-hmm.
She's an artist and she painted it. And I saw it and I was like, can I use that painting? She was like, sure. I was like, for my book cover? She said, you want this for your book cover? I was like, it's perfect. She is walking past a storm.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it is. Because, and then when she drew it, it was so funny. When she first did it, she was like, the girl in the picture has locks. And I was like,
wow. I was going to ask, was that supposed to be you?
I found out later it was me. And I was
That's
like, oh, so emotional. And then I love the color. It's so vivid. And the
really
red, the red always symbolizes the blood of Jesus to me. Always.
Yeah.
Every time I see like my cardinal, my favorite bird, the red bird, I always thought it's the blood of Jesus flying. But that's what it symbolized to me. She could have done it in any color, but that red stuck out because it took the blood of Jesus for me to get past all of that, to talk about seeing past the things, seeing past the betrayal, seeing past the storm, seeing past the abandonment and the rejection.
Beautiful.
Because that's the second part of the book. I actually saw past and was able to be healed and forgiven for some things, and to forgive. So the first part talks about, oh, thank you, Sheila. The first part talks about the storms, but I had to go into seeing past those storms. Yeah. So we go through things in our lives, but we can't stay there. I stayed there too long. We're talking about 35. Mm-hmm. That's a long time to be in all of the stuff. And my life was out of control and my decisions were out of control. I was in the destructive mode. In one of the chapters, I talk about trying to kill myself. Mm-hmm. And it was real. It wasn't a cry for help because no one knew. I was by myself. I was serious with it. Sometimes they say that when you really don't want to take your life, you tell people. Mm-hmm. But people who are really serious about it tell nothing. I told nothing. I dropped the kids off like normal. Mm-hmm. And then I had my mission. I knew how I was going to do it. I had the instruments to use to do it. It was God that stopped me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't me that stopped me because it was too much. It was betrayal after betrayal after betrayal after homelessness and Bell's palsy. You remember I had Bell's palsy. Yes. The sugar addiction, all of the stuff that was just kept happening. My life felt like nothingness. And it was like, why am I here? And the enemy was in my ear big time, even though I was in church. Chrissy, you know that. Sold out. I've learned that being in a church doesn't matter if you haven't changed, if you're not willing to change or anything like that. You can be in church and still be caught up in all the unforgiveness and all the bitterness and have so much strife. How many times have we seen some nasty church women? I mean, nasty as in the way they look. I mean, just their attitudes. Dipped in lemon juice. Vindictive. People are like that in the church, and has nothing to do with being in the church. It's really a heart matter and what you're going to, what the word of God tells us. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of our testimony. And so I thank God. I thank God for that. I thank God for you being able to overcome all of that. Wow. Thank you. Me too.
One more. one more here. You are truly a phenomenal woman. Phenomenal.
I know, phenomenally. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. I'm sharing because I want other people to be able to be open. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't want anyone to feel, I felt alone through this whole process. We didn't talk about self care. We didn't talk about mental health. The only times we talked about mental health is when someone was ill, but they don't understand that 2 seconds away, everybody is ill.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that they're struggling with. So you do have a mental illness if you're
Mm-hmm.
going through these things. That's not healthy. And if you're not healthy, you're ill. But we want to put this dark cloud on it and talk about just schizophrenia and all of the voices. And no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Mental illness is when mentally something is wrong. You have a
Yeah.
block or a breakdown, or you're depressed. Those are all signs of mental illness, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to talk about them. We were too ashamed. You grew up when I grew up. We couldn't talk about therapy. We
No.
didn't go to therapy,
Mm-hmm.
not at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to write this book to be open and honest. We have people who talk around issues,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to talk about the issues. Yeah, I'm this person. This is who I am.
That's right.
No hiding. I'm
Mm-hmm.
real. And this is it. However, I didn't stay there. Am I
Yes.
perfect? Absolutely not.
Hear
I,
you.
I told you I still have more storms I could talk about in present day. Knowing all that I know and knowing forgiveness and knowing God and still being sold out, there's still every day to, day-to-day things because we're human.
Mm-hmm.
We are a spirit, but guess where we're living? In this human form. And this
Mm-hmm.
human form wants a lot of stuff that goes against the spirit and goes
Mm-hmm.
against God. And so it's that constant struggle. But I want people not to beat up on themselves or be ashamed or
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed. That's how the enemy keeps you quiet. He was
Yep.
like, oh, but you
Mm-hmm.
remember what Minister Jamie told us that one time? She said, if you tell your story, then the devil can't tell it for you.
Yes.
That
I've
stuck
always
with me.
held on to that. Me too. Me, that always stuck to me. And I would always be like, I'll tell it before I let somebody else tell it. Because at least you can't hold it against me. If I can tell it, I can be like, an enemy has nothing to hold on to because I've already told you my story. Yep.
Period. And you know the story,
Yeah.
but you know what you're saying. Other people
Right.
will add to and subtract, and you're like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
that wasn't even how it happened.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah, I'd rather tell it than somebody else tell it. The
Mhm.
first person, though, that I told about this book when it was coming out was my
Mhm.
mother. And that was the reaction that scared me the most because I was like, I got really personal in this book, and my mother knew none of it.
Mm.
And I was so scared. So I sent her the book. Of course, I had to autograph it. So I mailed it to her, and the post office lied to me. I still have a problem with the post office. They told me she wouldn't get the book until a week after. She got the book 2 days later. So when she called me, I'm thinking we're going to have a regular conversation. She was like, Andrea Joyce. I was like, oh, I'm in trouble.
Oh.
I was
Mhm.
like, yes, ma'am. And she was like, I got your book. And I almost passed out. I was in a grocery store. I almost passed out. I was like, oh no. And she
Mhm.
said, not only has she gotten it, she said, I read it, the whole book.
Oh my
I said,
God.
already? You're done? And she was like, when something is good, I can't put it down. And she said, your book should be a bestseller. And I was like, whoa. I was
Coming
floored.
from yeah.
I was floored, like,
Mhm.
wow. But
Yep.
then my mother broke down on the phone and said, I had no idea the things that you went through and you didn't tell me. And for the first time in my life, I was able to be 100% honest with my mother and say, we were not close. I didn't like you.
Oh wow.
So I could not trust you to tell you these things. And my mother said, you're right, we weren't close. And to hear that, I was like, thank you. Because people think that just because you're family, you have this bond, it doesn't always work that way. Choices and issues. I remember growing up, and I didn't even put this in the book, my mom would compare me to my biological father. She would say, you remind me of him. You act just like him. You look just like him. Well, if she hates him, and
Mhm.
you're saying I'm acting like this, so my whole thing was, so you don't like me. And there are some ways that she treated me sometimes. We talked about it after the book that made me feel she didn't like me.
Oh, wow.
But it was her pain because she was in love with my father and it didn't work. So she had pain and not realizing, hello, need your love and affection and attention here. So it felt, and we were not close, not for a lot of years until I was an adult. And so we actually got to talk about it because of this book. And then my mom was like, and to know that you were going to take your life, and that did it for me. I fell out in the store because she was like, if you would have taken your life, I would have had to take in mine because I would not have been able to be here without my daughter. And we both boo-hoo. I never knew my mother felt like that, you know? And so to have that conversation was just like,
I never knew you weren't close because as an adult, like you know, whenever your mother was around, how you would be with her. I never knew you weren't close ever at one point. Wow.
Yeah, we didn't get close until after that. But I always had a respect for my mother, and I always wanted to please. That there goes that. See, I need to do another book talking about the people pleasing, because that part was horrible in my life. I did any and everything to try to be accepted and approved and validated, and it didn't work.
I know. I had the same little story right there. Yes, I'm telling you, we can compare stories, and it'll probably be very similar.
I'm waiting for you to write your book. I'm ready.
I will. I start and I have some stuff, you know, in my head and some stuff written down, but it's really time to go ahead and just write the book.
You need to, because you have a huge story. I can't wait to read. So you need to get a recorder. So that way, if you don't want to write all the time, you could talk into the recorder and then have somebody type it up for you. No more excuses. Write your book.
I know. I'm going to do it. I got to hold myself accountable. I just to my women's meeting on last Saturday, and I was talking about, you know, writing the visions and making it plain and doing, you know, what you said you're going to do, being accountable for what you said you were going to do. And so there you go. I have to be accountable and do it. I have, you know, I don't want to wait until December and then be like, oh, all right. 2023, here we come.
Oh no, I'm going to be sending you messages. You know, I like to harass.
It's okay. I need the kick in the butt sometimes. Let me, you know, go ahead. Vanessa's clapping her hands. Yes. Come on, look. She said, yes, come on, First Lady. I need your book.
That's right. Powerful story.
Right. I will.
You have it. You can tell because you're a psalmist, number one. And number two, and you preach and teach the word. So you know.
I do.
Yeah. I need people to know who this is. She's just not the host of the Christina Nelson show. This is a whole pastor in front of you.
Oh, Lord.
Whatever. I'm a witness. Come talk to me. She has preached. She can preach. And
they heard me.
She's a psalmist. I'm telling the world. So in case you try to hide, the world now knows your secret.
It's all good. It's all good.
We do need your book. We do.
Okay. Definitely. Okay. I'm going to get on it. I am. I'm going to start typing.
You got a whole tribe behind you.
Yeah, I do. I do. Yes, I do.
He's never going to invite me on again.
My husband ain't say nothing this whole time, but now
walk in it. Come on, Pastor. The pastor has spoken.
Yeah. Okay. You know, he's been telling me. He's been on me and on me and on me. He's been telling me. So you know how that goes. So but Andrea, it was a pleasure. It was so good to have you here, and thank you so much for being honest and open. And that book was very, very good. Please go and get her book, AndreaJoyce.net, please, or Amazon. This, Lord, look, now I can't even remember. You got me all flustered here. See it, there we go. That book right there with the red lady. The book with the red lady, the umbrella.
Seeing Past the Storm.
It's a beautiful book. Very good. Very good. Very eye-opening. And it's not eye-opening because it's you. It's just eye-opening because a lot of people can relate to some things. If they can't relate to everything, they can relate to something in that book. One or two things in that book. Absolutely.
Yes, this was God inspired. I did not choose to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do this. This was an assignment, kind of like what Chrissy has now, an assignment that was given to me. I didn't want to, but
Mm-hmm.
I needed to heal fully. And like when I know we're getting ready to wind down, but like one of the chapters when I talked about my violation, I had
Mm-hmm.
never really talked about that before.
Yeah, I was deep.
And that one, it took me a couple of days to write that one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually, in order for me to write it in my mind, I had to go back there and be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like a victim all over again. Like I had no voice and no power. And it was so hard. So
Yeah.
God had to deal, but I had to get that out
Mm-hmm.
because what I didn't realize was that it was still there. I still had that fear. And some of the things that I chose to do in life was because I no longer cared about that side
Mm-hmm.
of it. And so I allowed things to be done. I didn't even realize this, and I didn't put this in a book, but I'm going to share this with you. No one has ever heard this before. I was molested when I
Oh.
went into as an adult. Isis
Mm.
was about 3 or 4 years old. I went into a beauty supply store. And when I went into the store, I was looking for something, and the store owner walked where I was and rubbed against my body, front and back.
Oh my gosh.
And I froze. I froze because I didn't know what to do. I
Mm-hmm.
went back to the violation.
Mm-hmm.
So that still had me captive because if I was Andrea, because Andrea didn't play, she'll knock somebody out, but it was where he touched me that
Yeah.
took me back to that place. And I never talked about that. No one ever knew that something else happened to me sexually. And
Mm.
so in that instance, when I froze, I didn't know what to do. And he walked away laughing. And I just cried and left out of the store. I was a grown woman with a
Wow.
child. And I was even in a relationship, never told the person what happened because
Mm-mm.
I thought this is what I deserve. This
Mm-hmm.
again, I went back to that victim that I was in the violation. And so when I had to deal with this violation, God reminded me about that. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I
Wow.
had to deal with that and let it go so I would not feel like a victim anymore. That I know that what was done to me was not right, that I didn't cause it. It didn't matter. Even I wasn't even dressed, but it doesn't matter. Even if I was dressed a certain
Yeah.
way, no one has the right to do that.
No
But
one
the
has.
mere fact that I wasn't, but I felt like, what did I do? Was I too
Mhm.
sexy? Was I showing too much?
Oh my
Girl,
God.
you had on a turtleneck and big jeans. What were you showing?
No, it doesn't
But
matter.
that mentality. And
Mm-hmm.
so writing this opened the door for that. So now I know, hey, you might not want to play around with Andrew right now.
Yeah.
You may not get that reaction.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Wow. Girl.
So that's the first. No one has ever heard that story
Oh my
before.
gosh. As a grown woman, and that's a crazy thing. You're a grown woman with that happening. How many other women has it happened to and no one said anything? They just kept it silent. Well, and now they're starting to speak out. So the women are starting to say things too with all that's going
And we
on.
need to believe them. And what is it? You're innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
Well, believe them until they're proven that they are not telling the truth. You
Yeah.
question people. The hardest thing to do is to admit that. People rob you of your power and
Yes.
your voice when they abuse you. So the mere fact that you're able to say something, that's hard. Look
Mm-hmm.
how long it took me to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that person is nowhere near my life anymore at all, but I still held it because of the
Mm-hmm.
shame.
Yeah.
So, and I guess this is my plea for people: if someone comes to you, child, boy or girl, let us
Mm-hmm.
not overlook this. Happens to boys also.
It does. It does.
Men get molested. I want to tell you that it does
Mm-hmm.
happen. Do not laugh about it. Don't doubt them. Investigate and find out what's going on and what's
Mm-hmm.
happening. And it's horrible. That's a violation. And that's why that chapter is called, because there's no other word for it. Is you're violating every right that I have.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow, Andrea, let me tell you something. My gosh, that was good. That was good. Very good. Thank you so much, my friend, my sister.
Me. I'm gonna stop talking now.
You're good. You're good. You're good. You are good. I was trying to pin when you something you said here, but it's okay. Okay. So thank you so much. I love you to life.
I
Thank
love
you for coming on
you.
here. And we will definitely hook up and definitely talk. Everybody's saying yes, it was a lot. Oh yeah, there's a lot of perverts running around. There are, and grown men and like you said, women too, grown, and people just don't know what to say. Especially if you're a man. If you're a man, you probably won't keep it to yourself because you're embarrassed. But you know, but let's get rid of that shame and those ideas that you can't be open and honest and or be afraid anymore. So we come against that spirit, right? In Jesus.
Amen. Yes.
Amen.
Yes. Thank you, Lord.
All right, guys. Thank you once again for being on my show. And guys, next week, we know that we're having health revival. So my husband and I in the huddle, we're having a health revival all week long. And so instead of the Christina Nelson show, we will be having the health revival. It's going to be on the YouTube channel. And then I'll probably show it also on my Facebook channel so that people can, everywhere just kind of watch it and see what's going on. But it's a health revival. And we have speakers all next week. Is it next week? Yes, it's next week. And they're all talking about mental trauma, just everything, your health, being nutritionist. And I forgot who was Tuesday, but we are having a health revival all next week. And so no Christina Nelson show technically, but it's also, we'll be in the huddle. Have it aired here on the Facebook. So everyone, thank you once again for being here. Thank you for listening. Everyone, we're glad that your attention was held, and we thank you so much for being here. Nobody left. Everybody just stayed right on. Everybody was captivated. It was like, come on, let's bring it some more. Give me some more. But thank you, everyone. God bless you, everyone. And I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget to listen to Pastor at 12 o'clock p.m. And we'll see you on Friday Night Live. Everyone, God bless you. Have a nice night.
Good night, everybody.